So the Bluegrass Soccercast, your home for all things soccer right here in the beautiful Commonwealth of Kentucky. I'm, of course, Jimmy. That, of course, is Mr. John. And John, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. John, it is back to school season. Colleges are in full swing. All the high schools are in full swing, and middle schools, and elementary. And I have a very important question to kick us off today for you, John.
hmm
What was your favorite memory of school? Any level, but what was your favorite memory of school?
I mean,
Putting you on the spot, like you were taking a
like
PK.
in school or just like school
Anything
associated.
related to school. You scored a goal in the state
I
final,
mean, my
something.
high school won girls state in basketball my sophomore year. That was pretty fun
That's pretty
experience.
cool.
They bust us out to the final four.
Nice. Where was it?
Um, Michigan State,
Oh, that's right.
because Michigan State's like right here, like
Mm-hmm. Right in the middle of
middle of
the.
the
I
state.
love it. For those who aren't listening, if you do the state of Michigan by the shape of your hand. Oh, I love that. We can't do that in Kentucky,
You
but
can. It'd be like a weird
yeah, you kind of have to like
type
crook
thing.
your thumb. Yeah, it just looks funny. But what we can do in Kentucky is we can talk about amazing soccer. So, John, this week we're going to go on and get completely disorganized because all my notes are out of order. What just happened? There we go. We're going to go by starting like we always do off the top. So, John, over the past weekend, both Lexington and Louisville dropped their home matches, and I really need to know what's going on. So, John, let's start in Louisville. We'll go over, kind of the highlights from the match and what happened here in a little bit. But I want to start by just looking at the result. They lost again, and they did not look good at all. John, did you have a chance to kind of check that match out or see any of the highlights or anything from it?
I watched the first half and bits of the second half. Um, well, first off, they did go on for a four match unbeaten run. So
They did.
the catalyst, it's not like the three straight losses type thing. Um, they really, I think they were fine overall. They had planned to go into it. I think that early goal by Birmingham just rattled them.
And I
Um,
think Danny Cruz talked about that. And I think that was one of the things that he mentioned as some of the things that kind of just took the wind out of their sails.
I genuinely think if a goal is scored within 10, 15 minutes of a match, it can totally change the entire game because it
Agreed.
just rattles guys early type thing. Like, yes, as a coach, you're like, let's get goals, and you want to get that early goal as fast as you can. But I don't think many coaches plan or even players plan to be scored on early and to respond. Some can, some teams can, and they're good at it. But some teams just rattles them, and they're out of sorts, and all of a sudden they're having to play on the back foot for the majority of the game. It can rattle them, and I think that's what happened to Lou. They just got rattled. I
Yeah.
think Semley just got rattled. He's young, and he just got scored on in 5 minutes. I genuinely think he just got rattled in that case for the second goal. He was just rattled.
Yeah. And it was just a situation where he couldn't get it together. That back line, again, more issues still happening, miscommunication still happening. We talked about it last week with Benton from Vamos Marauders about that back line and some of the cohesiveness that they've not had. What is Adams, their acquisition from SD Loyals? He's looked pretty good, but that's in an individual effort. They have not looked great overall, though, in that back line. Another thing that we talked about with Benton last week, and John, I kind of want to pick your brain on it, was this idea of this: is there a culture issue? Is there something going on with them? Benton was very, pretty affirmed that there was not, that, from what he could tell and from his sources inside the team, there was no kind of a culture issue at all. What have you kind of seen?
I personally don't see there's a culture issue. I see there's a communication issue. So there's just if people are miscommunicating with each other overall, or there's not familiarity, I don't see it as a culture issue. Culture issues are like players aren't getting along with each other. They're not,
Right.
and on the field can amplify things, but like players are overly competitive, so they're gonna be mad. But I don't think if you see a player shout at another player, it's not like they are truly like they hate each other, they can't get along at all. It's just like in the moment they're frustrated, and it kind of they'll probably can turn it off and their buddies off the pitch is the thing.
And I think that's
Communication
exactly
is a
what
lot more
happened in that
obvious.
second goal.
Yes. Communication is a lot more obvious type things from the field, and that's what I'm seeing. They're not communicating. Specifically, that back line is not aware of where they are at. They're not playing very cohesive and together. Um, and I think that also has to do with the injury stuff. There was, I
Yes.
forget who it
The
was,
lack
but
of
some guy,
consistency.
yeah, someone got subbed on, and it was his first minute since like early June or
Yeah.
whatever it is. They're still dealing with injuries. Owenby is still in and out. He wasn't in that game. He's still in and out. So I think overall they're just dealing with stuff still, and it seems they can never catch a break. Even
Well,
in
and
a
Ownby is an
four-match
older
unbeaten
player
run.
too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but like you were saying there, even in that unbeaten run, I think that miscommunication is what led to the draws as opposed to some of the victories, right? But when you're trying to work on communication, you would think more practice time, more time together on the field would help that, but that's not what I'm seeing from the keeper up. You know what I'm saying?
I see that, and I think it's more the groups themselves aren't communicating. So, in my whole, in this is my kind of philosophy. Each individual group needs to first be established, and each line needs to get figured out first.
Yep.
If they can communicate with each other, that's when you want to connect everything. Because you don't want to try to connect your center back to your striker if the center backs aren't figuring out with each other.
Right.
Type thing. You don't want to connect the attack with the midfield if the midfield hasn't figured themselves out together and how to work together. Once you've established all that, that's when you try to connect them, because if they're not working together, the center back, say you have, or a wing back, you have a more attacking wing back, the center back's going to know, okay, he's going to go up, I'm going to go over here. But if they're not
Right.
familiar with that, the center
Then
back
it's
doesn't know to
chaos.
move over to, and vice versa, the line doesn't know how to shift if they're not all connected to each other. And I think that's the issue right now. They're not. It could be due to injuries and the consistency and stuff. They're not sure exactly what each player is going to do. And like Tyler Adams has been playing really good for them,
He has. He's
but he's
been the
still only in
star on
his
that back
fifth
line.
match. He's still only
Yes.
in his fifth match with this team. He's been there just over a month
Yeah.
ish.
Just
Like that's
barely.
still new. That's still new with the team type thing. So um it's gonna take time. And I think I saw this on Twitter somewhere. It's like I
Oh,
think
the
it's
the
time
dominant
for
Twitter.
I think it's time for Blue City fans to understand that like you might be a mid table team, and that's okay. The whole Benton was talking about this. The whole like 10-year run y'all have gone on of pure dominance, that's not normal in at least the USL or American soccer with the closed system.
Right.
Like that just hasn't happened. And I think what they're seeing is the result of the league getting better and growing. They're seeing the result of you're not dominant anymore. Sorry. And it could just be an off year. They could bounce right back next year and do it. But I think they need to come to the reality of like, you're going to have to be a mid table team for a little bit. Like, like even the big six in England have been mid table or mid top table, at least because they have 20, have been mid top table before. And they go through a stretch of like that. Some of
And
them
clubs get
worse
relegated.
than others. Yeah, debatable. I'm not saying they're on like going to be finishing at the end of the league type stuff. Like
No, no.
Everton and Arsenal are tied for like the most in the top flight. They technically have never been relegated, I believe it is.
Wow.
But no one looks at Everton as a big six right now.
I don't know if they've ever really been a Big Six member, but that's just some of my lack of knowledge of European soccer.
You could argue Spurs and Everton swapped each other.
But pulling it back to Lou City here, they made the formation change, and it seemed to help the attack a little bit. But by losing that backline defender now, it's kind of creating even more pressure on the keeper and on the three back linesmen to keep track of everything, right? And that's kind of led to some of these goals that they've let in is people not tracking their man or somebody just, two people flooding the zone and not being able to cover everyone.
Yes. I think that's a mix of Kyle Adams, not Tyler Adams. Kyle.
I feel like I went to high school with a Tyler Adams.
Well, Tyler Adams is also the captain of the national team.
Oh yeah. LOL.
He just signed to the Cherries. But what was I? Kyle Adams being, I think, in the back line, it's just the factor of chemistry. They need to learn how to work together well. Kyle Adams bringing in is an improvement and sort of thing, but it's also with him in, he got brought in because the back line is technically speaking on their B players.
Yeah.
Technically. Because Winder's gone. Winder's replacement is out for the season. So it's just they're dealing with being a step down technically in Cruz's. I'm not saying the players themselves are a step down, but they might possibly not be Cruz's first choice if all his team's completely healthy.
Right.
And they're dealing with the middleman being brand new. When you're running a 3-back center back line, the middle center back is the boss. He runs the show. And so if your middle center back is a new guy in the system who's only been there just over a month, he's played great, but some of the communication is he might not be able to communicate with the other ones where they need to be.
Yeah, and the only thing that can help solve that is time, right? And repetition.
Repetition. They need to get more consistency with each other. I don't know what practice is like or any of that sort of thing, but they need to be more consistent. If I'm Cruz, questionable players are not training with the starting 11 that I'm thinking. They're going to be worked in as subs. They're not going to be worked in as the starting 11 that I'm planning for the team. I don't care how long Owenby's been there. If he's questionable, you're not considered a starter
then
yet.
You're not starting. Yeah, I agree with you. I would rather have a player like that or any player healthier for more years in the future than just trying to push up the table a little bit. So I think we can both agree culture doesn't seem to be the issue. Maybe some miscommunication, yes, but not a major cancer or bad locker room situation. And I agree with you. I think the formation has been a good change, but they need that time together the rest of this season, maybe even into next season to really capitalize on that. So then the last kind of question that I want to bring up about Lou City for this was, should Danny Cruz be on the hot seat? Personally, I don't think so yet. I think it would be a real quick trigger by the ownership group to let go of Danny Cruz. But hey, man, people in soccer lose their jobs for way less success. So I would be stunned if they were to let go of Coach Cruz, because who are you going to replace him with, right? Like Phil Neville, he's not coming to the USL champion. I can tell you that much. So if you're not getting a better caliber coach, what are you doing?
I don't think he's fully on the hot seat. It could be a little hot, but I don't think he's there yet. Just because, for me, he hasn't warranted it yet. They've
I absolutely
stumbled
agree.
as of late, but they're still in the playoffs. That type of thing. And the top of the East is very competitive and very good. It's
Yes.
going to be how they finish out the season. I genuinely think if they do stumble the rest of the season, it could be hot.
Yeah.
But they also just signed him to a 3-year deal before this season, or
Yeah. So it would
extension
be
at
very
least.
expensive.
So I don't see them letting go of him this year. If this stuff continues into next year, then maybe.
Yeah.
But
Then
this
maybe a
year,
mid-season switch, but
I
not
think
now.
he is safe this for at least till next season. He is safe
I
through the start of next season.
And we can look when the season's actually over for Lucidia, like roster moves that need to be made and like positional groups that need to be refreshed and reloaded and stuff like that. But I just think this team just needs more time together and needs to continue to get healthier. But I just also think as Lou City fans, we need to recognize championship may not be coming this year. So, but John, with that, we'll move over to Lexington, who also stumbled on Saturday. They were up a man for a good chunk of the game. Yeah, like what,
Yes,
60 minutes,
but
something like that.
no, they lost. It was like 50.
Okay,
Uh,
50.
Knox lost a forward, who was actually a former teammate of Charlie and Fox
Hmm.
at Tucson. They lost a forward in the 39th minute, so 55-ish minutes.
Yeah,
This is what I want to say on that. One, going up a man is not like guaranteed win. Get that? If you think that, you do not understand how tactics work or anything, because there's still 10 other men, and how big the field is, that's not really that much of a man advantage. Truly and
no,
honestly, it's not. Um, Especially in the league this year in USL 1, there's been 13 matches. There no matches on Saturday happened this way. There's been 13 matches where a red card was given when the score was level, so tied. So now the side with the man advantage went 5-4-4,
jeez,
where they win 38% of the time. Now, granted, you can take out 3 of those games, 3 of the ties, because they were happening in like the 90th plus minute when the red card was given. So then it still goes to like 50% of wins if it's like you genuinely have enough time to use your man advantage. So, but still, that's a coin toss.
yeah, that's not
That's
that
not,
big of a
and there's
difference.
more, yeah, and there's 4 losses out of that thing. Granted, Lex is 2 of those, but still, it's really hard. And the Guardian produced something in 2010 about this. It's when a team goes down a man, they know their strategy in and out. They are going to be defensive. They're going to attack. They're going to run more of a counter attack, but they're not going to go on their all out attack type thing down a man. They can be
They're going to play
defensive.
more of the counter.
Knoxville is already a defensive team. This team has never scored more than 2 goals all season. So Knoxville's, and that's just how they are. They're already a defensive team. They have one of the better keepers in the league in Sean Lewis, and they lost a forward with
Right.
5 minutes
A
before the
non-strength of
half.
the team.
So
Mm-hmm.
before the half. So Knoxville's coach is going into halftime with 5 minutes to spare, knowing I am down a man. I can talk. If this happened more in the second half, it's the same thing with Fuego. If it happened in the second half, you can be a little more on Lexington about it because early in the second half, because the coach has to work on the fly then. He doesn't have a full 15, 20 minutes to be like, here's what we're going to do now that we're down a man. It changes the game depending on when you get it. And also, it's just hard to score goals. Yes,
Yeah.
Lexington was the offensive terror, but it happens. You go against a good team. You go in a rival environment. Knoxville had, I think, their largest crowd of the season for this game.
It was a nice crowd, and I wasn't there.
Um,
And I mean, you were, but it seemed
I
like a
th-
nice crowd on
it
TV.
seemed about the same. I know their season opener was their largest so far, and it seemed roughly around the same for it.
Mm.
And I was at both of those because Lex was at both. Um, it's hard to win, and it honestly, in full honesty, the game was a tie.
Yeah.
The
Well, it
one
should
goal,
have been at least.
yeah, it by performances by both teams was a tie because outside of that one goal, which if you truly watch that goal, Knight misses it by a few inches.
Yep. Just
That
past his
happens.
fingertips.
It just happens. Other than that, Knoxville couldn't get really anything going after they went down a man. And then, yes, Lexington took some poor shots in the second half. I'll admit that. But they were crossing it. They were trying. It was just, they couldn't catch a break, which happens. That just happens. It's not, Knoxville was loading up their box as they should be on defense. And it just happens, people. It's not, I was seeing some stuff where like it's pathetic and all that stuff. It's not pathetic. It's not. It happens. It doesn't. All of a sudden, a team goes down a man, and all of a sudden they're like their skill level drops 50%. That's not how it
Right. It's not like
works.
FIFA. You know, if you're playing FIFA, when you go up a man in FIFA, you can find a way pretty easily to get the advantage, right? Like you slip the right pass and you get through. It's not that easy in a real world, right? And you know, for in my observations, because I watched a good chunk of that game, um, the reasons Lexington couldn't find the equalizer had nothing to do with them being up or down a man. Like that's just how strong defensively One Knox is. I don't think One Knox played very much, if any, different when being down a man. Their defense was tight. Their keeper was on his line and was barking and played a really good game. As much as
He
all of
made
that pains me to say.
he made some. From my memory, he made two critical saves that
Mm-hmm.
were surefire goals. Like he had to dive
Yes,
and sort of thing.
full extension.
I don't know if they were counted as saves because I've learned recently if a goalie catches the ball, it's not a save, which is
Huh?
stupid.
Strange.
It makes sense to a lot of things I've seen when I've looked up a goalie save percentage and or saves, and it's like lower than I expected. But he made two or three of those in the second half that denied Lexington the equalizer. There are days, this happened with racing against the Dash and the Challenge Cup. There are just days where a keeper is on their thing. It doesn't matter if you have a man advantage, two man
Yep.
advantage, whatever. If the keeper's on their day, you're not getting past them. Look at 2014, the Tim Howard against Belgium. On paper, U.S. should have lost that game by like 5 or 6 goals.
Right.
It was absurd the attack that Belgium had in that game. But Tim Howard was on his day, had his best game arguably ever. Best game I've ever seen out of a keeper ever.
Yeah, either
And
that
they
one
only
or
lost by,
his snow game performance. Both of those are just so iconic.
yeah. I think the World Cup one's a little more because it's in the World Cup.
Yeah, because you know it is the World Cup. Yes, thank you.
And they only lost that by 2.
Yep.
he only let in 2 goals, and after facing like 16, and he made 15 saves that game. So he faced like it was absurd. Um, if a
So kind
keeper's
of
on their
in
day, it doesn't matter. It's not a knock against the other team at all. Like it's not pathetic that another team couldn't score when a keeper's on their day. That just happens. The thing, the thing, and this is I'm gonna get a little ranty here. The thing I
yeah, go
don't
for
like about casual fans is they think scoring is easy. They
it.
think that just scoring goals, and Messi hasn't helped with this a little bit, is just easy. Like so many people are questioning the quality of the MLS because of what Messi is doing. The man in 2012 scored 93, 98 goals in a calendar year. That was
Yep.
Champions League, that was La Liga, that was Copa. Like 93 goals in a calendar year. The man walked over a bunch of teams. He scored like 38 goals in 41 matches against Sevilla in his career. Like the man, 25 ish in like 40 against Real Madrid. The man is dominant. Don't equate dominant players like Messi or Ronaldo as the norm of what every player should be. There's a reason the U.S. has had a struggle, at least on the men's side, of finding a true number 9 because number
Yeah,
nines don't come normally.
they don't.
Erling Haaland is a freak of nature for a reason. Lewandowski has been able to, at his age, same thing with Harry Kane, to bounce around. Well, debatably bouncing around, but they've been able to stay on top tier teams because they are a world class number 9 that you can just insert and have everything else be good and they just finish. It's really, really hard to be a top number 9. And Lexington was without our best number 9 because Diouf
Indeed.
was hurt.
Yep. And that came
He
from the match last weekend, right?
Yes, he got subbed off at halftime, which that's another thing that the announcers suck at announcing halftime subs because they're about.
Yeah.
Charlie went in for Delamedia, and people are like, "When did Charlie get in?" I was like, "At the start of the half." The thing they did the thing, but the PA is not paying attention.
Well, and
Um,
also like the broadcaster for One Knox. Come on, dude, you're not calling a golfing match. Jeez, oh
no,
Pete,
that's
do
not.
better.
So the USL does not have, to my knowledge, does not have a broadcaster per team. They have like a
Or
8 to 10
whoever that
man
was.
team. They have an 8 to 10 man team because he's done some Lex games and he's done some other games. I don't understand what's up with him and why he thinks he needs to like talk quietly when there's literally fans chanting. Like you're not
Right.
going to disturb anything, and
Because they're not
you're
at the
not
game, are they?
there. You're
Yeah.
No, they're all in Tampa. You're
Yeah.
not there.
And
They're
they
not
do
going
this
to
on the
hear you.
studio.
I don't understand why they just feel the need to talk like
Yeah, I
it's
don't get it.
some hushed room.
I mean, maybe they're in like a hushed environment where, it's like one dude calling one game and right next to them somebody else calling another game, because I don't remember if that was the same guy from the Fuego game, but that game was another one where the commentator was just super quiet and you could hear a fan blowing on the microphone in that one. Like, ugh,
That the guy was there. There are some
was
that are
he?
there.
Okay.
So
So I'll
like
give him credit because it was like super hot.
kickers have a guy who's been there. I think certain teams can have their own commentary, but it's not like guaranteed. So
Right.
like Knoxville doesn't have one, Lex doesn't have one to my knowledge.
Well, if Lexington, Louisville, Racing Louisville, heck, One Knox, Memphis 901, if y'all need a commentator, a play by play guy, a color commentator to bring some excitement in, your boy right here has done it before, and I'd be more than happy to actually get paid for it this time around. So, turning it back to Lexington, though, can we officially put the dirt on the conversation of Lexington not making the playoffs? In my opinion, the points are too many to climb out And I think it is time for Lex. Great rest of the year. Play it out. Get some of the younger guys in. But the playoffs are probably no, they'll probably the playoffs are out of the question in my opinion.
It they're not statistically out of it, but it would take some magic for it to happen because they're 9 points out of the
Magic. Good
line.
lord, it would take like a miracle.
They're 9 points out of it. So it would be very tough for it to happen, especially with the run of form other teams are on. And what, 1, 2, 3, 3 of the top 6 have played less games than Lexington. So it would be hard. I'm not, if Lexington goes on a run, they could do it. But what Lexington fans need to know is playoffs were going to be hard anyways because it was about 50-50 for a team. Stockley purposely chose a team to play young, picked a younger team on purpose because he would rather win over 4 years than over 1 year.
And I think that's the right way to do it for the expansion side, right? Like
Yes.
you're coming in, you build it up. If you make it their first year, hey, phenomenal, but don't expect to do that.
Yes. And then they have 2 teams below them. And I think they genuinely could. What you're fighting for right now, Lex, is you want to be 7-8. That's your goal. Get to 7th or 8th. Because one, right now you have the runner up beneath you. The league runner up in the Red Wolves from last year beneath you. You have
but they've imploded, so
yeah, you have the regular season champion just above you from 2022. And you have the playoff champion also there. If you can, and this is my opinion, yes, all 3 of those teams have kind of imploded and stumbled. Tormento's looking a little better as of late, but if you finish above those 3 teams, the 2 finalists last year and the regular season champion, I don't care if they've imploded or not. That's a thing of saying we've came in, we didn't finish last. Like if you go back and look at all the predictions, like USL Tactics did it and all that type of stuff, we had a 0% chance of the playoffs. We're gonna finish last. All this sort of thing. They're gonna finish dead last, and that was because we were young and we were unproven, and that goes into that. But if we finish 7 through 8, even 9, that's good. The biggest thing that irks me is people saying is like when I'm trying to do stuff with the Railbird, trying to figure out why people aren't coming or what would make people come more is like, winning games. I'm like, that's great. I can't control that. I can control the fan experience. I can communicate with the club in fan ways. I can't just magically tell the other team, you need to let us win.
But if you could, that would be very nice.
If I could, Lexington would be undefeated right now. We'd be on pace to be the true invincible team ever.
Right. But I agree with you. I think the playoff goal for this team for this year, maybe not what they should be focused on. I think Coach Stockley's got his boys focused in the right direction of the future. They're going to play out hard. You know that team's not going to fold up their tents. No way that's going to happen. But I think as fans, we need to set our expectations a little bit more closer to the center than just finishing at the bottom as the goal, as opposed to making the playoffs.
And I think that what you just said about them not folding up the tents, I think that's another reason that I'm not as mad over losses because I've yet to see them just give up. They have played sloppy at times. They haven't put a full 90 in, but I've never seen them collectively just kind of give up and just be there going through the motion. They've always fought. They've always tried.
Well, I don't think Coach Stockley would let them just give up like that. I think it would be
I don't
way
think you
more
would.
of an implosion.
Yes, I don't think you would, but that's the point. I've seen teams just kind of give up. I've watched teams do it. So the fact that our team hasn't done it, just because they lost 1-0 with a man up, doesn't mean they're pathetic.
Right.
And I'm bringing up pathetic because I've seen multiple posts like that. There's also random racists that pop up on Instagram.
Jesus.
This one guy was like, "You're tarnishing Brazilian football or whatever it was." I'm like, they don't have a single Brazilian on the team. They're not playing
What is
Brazilian.
that all about?
I don't. You can go look. There's these like trolls
On the
that like.
Railbirds?
No, it's not on the Railbirds. It's
Oh.
on the Lexington's page. They just
Oh.
pop up out of nowhere. They don't
Hmm.
follow the team from what I've seen, and they'll just comment. But they
They're
only
just
ever
clout
comment
chasing.
on losses.
Just clout chasing. Like, yeah, go on. Have your fun. Make your comments.
Those guys are funny, but they're not worse than the send it on Kentucky whatever.
Oh my god. That's so weird. I'm like, what
I
do you
laugh
mean?
because I'll post on the Railbirds and I'll see that, and I'll go to these pages like we have more followers than your account. Why would we? And why would we send it there? Just share it if you want
Right.
to do it. Like they I don't understand how these
I
bots
think it's
work.
all bots anyways, so I don't know who's real and who's not anymore on social media. But speaking of people who've been playing like a robot, Lionel Messi and Inter Miami won the inaugural Leagues Cup in this format uh, this past Saturday. And John, let me tell you, my friend, as a day one Inter Miami fan, this was magical, and this was everything I could have hoped for as an Inter Miami fan. Great atmosphere down in Nashville. Those fans showed up and showed out, and that was exactly, I think, the best representation of soccer in this country at the highest level possible. You had the Cinderella story, and I'm putting that in air quotes because it's got Lionel Messi, Busquets, and all the other great stars that have joined or
They
have
were
just.
not Cinderellas in the League's Cup.
They were not. They were the
Messi showed
juggernaut.
up before the tournament ever started. They
Yep.
were not Cinderellas. If they
No.
barely squeaked out of group play and did this, then they're Cinderellas. They're
Right,
Cinderellas
but
in
they
the
did not.
MLS,
Yes, because
but
as
they are
Taylor
not in the
Twellman
League's
would
Cup.
continually to say, they are the last place worst team in the league. Blah blah blah. I don't want to hear it. All I want to hear from now on is Inter Miami Leagues Cup champion. That's it. Uh, but they're not done. Messi is not done. They are in the semifinals of the U.S. Open Cup this week as the U.S. Open Cup returns for the semifinals. FC Cincinnati host Inter Miami. So if you're in the greater Cincinnati area, that northern Kentucky region, get up there, pay your $1,000 per your ticket, and watch the GOAT play. Um, for me in that matchup, as an Inter Miami fan, I have a hard time seeing them winning that after the excitement and joy that they just displayed down in Nashville. But maybe they can regroup and they can get it back together and go for another run for another Cup final in a couple of weeks. But I think FC Cincinnati is going to come out with a lot to prove in that match, and we'll see how long Messi plays because regular season action returns this weekend for MLS club teams or for Inter Miami specifically. So I would imagine that the
No,
coaching
Messi's
staff would
playing the full
prioritize that.
90. No,
No,
Messi's playing the full. They're
you
going to
think so?
prioritize. They're going to prioritize trophies. If
I
you
mean,
win
yeah, but
three, if you win two of the three possible trophies, you can.
true.
And which two are the most realistic? They've already won
Right.
one.
Yep.
They're in the semifinals somehow of the Open Cup.
Because we played Birmingham in the quarterfinals. That's how.
I know, but you're in the semifinal
And we
somehow of
played
the Open
Charlotte.
Cup. You're if I'm the coaching staff, I'm prioritizing that because we can say we brought in two trophies
Yeah.
And yes, we barely missed the playoffs, but we brought in 2 trophies. Like, you're pulling a West Ham from last season. Statistically, you're out of it, but you can still call yourselves champions of this country
Let's
if you
go.
win it. So if I'm the coaching staff, I think the fans will be like, well, we'll take 2 trophies over Messi playing a full 90 on this one weekend.
True. And, to figure out what it's going to be like the rest of the season, too, right? Like, if they're going to have a hard push, and I think they will for the playoffs, I don't know. I think they might take it a little easy in this one, might take their foot off the gas just a tad, but what do I know?
I
The
don't
other
see
semifinal
them doing
match
that.
is Houston Dynamo hosting Real Salt Lake. I don't know anything about that one. Um,
Salt Lake will probably win that. They've been playing pretty well as
yep,
of late. They were one of the hottest teams going into the break.
but
So we'll
it's been
see.
a long break.
Yes, it's been a long break. So I think Real will win that. And then for Miami and Cincinnati, it's going to be interesting because Cincinnati has lost only 1 game at home this year,
Yeah.
and that
But
was
hey,
to
they did
Nashville in the
stop it
Leagues
in
Cup.
Philly. Philly was supposed
Huh?
to be this fortress, this place of nobody can win here. It's a house of nightmares for everyone. No, 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 not for Messi and the boys. Nope, nope, nope.
Cincinnati is much better than Philly. Philly was really good at home,
Mm,
but they weren't that great on the road. That's the thing this season. Cincinnati has been both like unstoppable at home and really good on the road. They have it like it wasn't like the Union were genuinely just like solely good at home
yeah,
and they were shaky on the road. Cincinnati's the top now. Cincinnati just lost also 3-0 to Columbus
they
this
did.
weekend.
So they're coming in hot.
Um, so we'll see what version of Cincinnati we get. I'm very curious to how much of the Bailey is full with the prices.
Oh yeah,
Now, the prices that they open, I don't know if that's season ticket or not. I don't know if season ticket holders got a special rate because I know I know at least with Lexington,
hmm
we had special like access type tickets. So I don't know if the Cincinnati season ticket holders got a special ticket that wasn't $700,
I'm sure. I'm sure they
but
did.
we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
it might
not.
have been 200, but it was still significantly cheaper.
So
But
we'll see. We'll see how packed TQL is with Cincinnati fans,
and that was
and
one of
we'll
the
see.
things in that Nashville game that kind of rattled Inter Miami a little bit. They were facing their first actual hostile crowd, and we know that TQL Stadium can be rocking for FC Cincinnati. So I
Yeah,
agree
and
with you. It'll depend on who shows
some
up.
reporter got mad at the Nashville fans for booing Messi. It's like you don't boo the best
That's
player in
what
the
you
world. It's like
do.
I don't care if Messi's playing against. Like I would love to see Messi, but if I am a Nashville fan, I am seeing Messi play, but then I don't want his team to win.
Right, right. You want your team to win. You want your team to prove, hey, we're better than those guys.
There's somewhere where there is art forever. There was Argentinian Real Madrid fans that when Messi played them in the El Clasico, he was like, "I'm okay with Messi doing good, but I don't want Barcelona to win."
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
Just because someone's the best player in the world doesn't mean you solely want them to win. Like that's not how that works.
Yeah. Well,
You don't get you're
yeah.
different because you're a fan of the team, but you don't get defaulted like, oh, you're the best player in the world. So default everybody wants you to win. That's not how
No,
that
no, that's not how
works.
it works. No. In fact, if he had gone somewhere else, I still would be rooting against him. Like I would be cheering for my team to beat him. If I had become a Nashville fan as opposed to an Inter Miami fan, they came in at the same time. Strong chance that
Which I don't know
I
why you
would have been
picked
rooting against him.
Miami.
Okay, so here's the story, right? Like David, no, two things, right? One, David Beckham. Grew up David Beckham fan, Bend It Like Beckham, great movie, watched when I was a kid, right? Two, I Miami is like my second favorite city. Like Kentucky, number one, like clear and obvious, right? But then my second favorite place is probably Miami. I grew up. My grandmother was a huge Pat Riley fan. Like she would, like we would watch old highlights of Pat Riley, playing for UK. And so then when I was a kid, found out, oh, he's like the coach of the Miami Heat. So I kind of attached myself to that, got hooked, with D Wade and Shaq and then LeBron and Bosh and, all those guys. So Miami's always been there as like this secondary market that I've always wanted to like dip my toes more into. And then I got to go there when I was in grad school because uh, my graduate school got to go play in the Orange Bowl, and it was like this big deal, and I was like a chaperone. Shout out to NIU, go Huskies. Um, so it was like actually getting to put myself in the culture, and it just further drilled in that yes, I am a diehard Miami Heat fan. And then I heard that David Beckham, my favorite player to that point, was coming into the league as an owner, and he was coming to Miami. Sorry, Nashville, love you, but gotta go to South Beach. Gotta cheer on Inter Miami. Day one fan. I was one of those fans in the Zoom link for the MLS's back tournament from back during COVID when that first was starting. That summer when they played all those games down in Orlando. So like it was a lot of fun. So I've been a fan since the beginning. It's just really exciting to be a fan now.
Okay.
Speaking of things that are just okay, let's go to our last story here for the off the top. U.S. women's national team part ways with their head coach Andonovsky.
Yeah, no. He resigned.
Whatever, you can say he resigned, but it was a mutual parting of ways, and he just
Parting.
agreed to resign.
I genuinely think he did this so he didn't get fired.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what I mean by mutually
I
parted
think the
ways. They were
act.
going to fire him. He didn't want to be fired, so he was like,
Well,
okay, I'll
he
leave.
resigned. They would have announced it as mutually parting ways. I think this for the USS USSF. This saves face a little bit over
Yes, it does.
firing because everyone was calling for them to be fired. And I
Yep.
genuinely thought he wasn't going to be until the World Cup finished,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, because I think the U.S. want to make a run at England's coach, who apparently the Netherlands men's team is rumored in for her, which would be huge.
Yeah, that would be a
And
massive change.
in general, they're but I think he resigned because I genuinely think from everything I've heard of Vlatko, he's very much one of pride and like of himself. He's not a toxic coach. I think
Nope.
he resigned just out of like conversations with people, conversations with stuff, and he's just like, I need to step away. It's type of thing. It could be to save face over not being fired or something, but I think he genuinely did that on purpose in a sense because he felt the need to. He felt he needed to resign. I don't think he was forced to at all. If he wanted to stay at all, he would have gotten fired
Yeah.
or the mutually parted ways type thing.
And I think we're saying the same thing for the most part. Like, yes, he was not. It was not mutual, but I think it was mutual in air quotes because he was going to be fired. They just didn't want to go through the process, so he agreed to step. I don't know. I got my tinfoil hat on for that one. But he had been the coach for the past 4 years. He had led them to the 2020 Olympic final, but that's kind of where the criticism started to kick up, and then everything that happened with this disappointing exit in the World Cup. Um, they have their interim coach right now, but they are on the search for a permanent coach. And John, I have a list of 3 candidates that could be replacing him as the coach of the women's team. The first one is the coach at England. I think she did a great job of getting them to the final. A little bit unlucky to lose to Spain in that way, but after hearing some of the stories with Spain and how that game played out for some of them, it only makes sense why they won.
Spain
Number
won. I'll get this out of the way. Spain won because they had the same mentality as the 2019 U.S. women's team. Different type of winning out of spite mentality,
right,
but it was the same. I don't believe just because one or two of the original 15 or so who said they're not going to play for the national team were welcomed back. I don't think the other B team where all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we're fine with playing. We have no issue with him. I genuinely think they went out and won it out of spite in this thing. If you noticed in some celebrations, yes, they did toss him up type thing. But in a lot of the celebrations throughout the tournament, they ignored him. They gave him the
yep,
cold shoulder. So I genuinely think now that that Spain's won a major trophy and the senior levels, they've won the U17 and U20 World Cups, but if they won it with this, we're going to see something come out within the next month. Another letter or something of this line. So, we want him gone.
yeah, and there were some weird things that happened with the Spain, the leader of their federation. He would
Oh,
kiss
their
somebody in the
president,
mouth, or president.
genuinely,
Yeah,
grabbed one of their players and just kissed her in the
yeah,
mouth. Now, both have played it
just
off.
not.
Both have played it off. Both the player and the president have played it off. So it could be she kind of understood the whole celebration thing, but either way, it's not cool.
Yeah, it was just kind of gross because that was somebody that I had on this list originally, but I have taken them off.
Take him
Um,
off. I don't want him
yeah,
anywhere
no,
near the U.S.
not after that.
They're not going to in general. I don't think they're going to hire anybody with any controversy around him. I don't
Right.
see the England. I would love the England coach, but I don't see her joining the U.S. because I see her as a way of she wants to take down the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that
Actually,
seems to be more of her mentality as
she
opposed
wants to
to
grow the
coming to the
game. That's
power
why
that is.
because she took two countries like the Netherlands and England were not that good before she got to them. England was
Right.
okay in the World Cup, but they weren't dominant. You could argue they were like the U.S. men's team where they're decent but not dominant at the World
I'd
Cup.
say it's a pretty good argument.
And same thing with the Netherlands team. They aren't insanely good before she gets in there. She gets in there, gets them, takes two national teams and two World Cups in a row to the World Cup final. Yes, she loses both, but that's still taking two countries, winning a Euros with the women's, and brings them there. I genuinely think she's trying to grow the game. She's
Yeah,
not going to
and
do that. She's not going to go. Yeah, I would be shocked if she does leave, if she goes to any World Cup winning nation.
yeah, and I think it is probably better for all soccer if she stays. But number 2 on the list, Laura Harvey, who is the manager at the OL Reign out of the NWSL, has a lot of experience coaching USWNT players. She was a candidate for the job in 2019. She knows U.S. soccer system well, but to me, is she like an uninspiring choice? Like, you're the best manager at the club level. Can you transition that to the world stage?
I could see her. Um, my biggest thing is I want a coach who genuinely will sweep out the vets as much as it will suck.
Yep.
I want a coach that what was it 2014 when Landon Donovan was left off the World Cup roster? It was this huge deal.
Yeah.
I want that in 2027 if Alex Morgan, to this coach's mind, does not fit the 23.
I
If the
mean,
coach, he or she go, Grant Morgan will be 37, 38, so she will be
Yeah.
older. But she's still right now because Rapinoe's retiring, and so is Ertz. She is the biggest name of a consistent who's played multiple World Cups
I think Rose
left.
Lavelle would be arguably either number two, could be number one as well.
Not over Alex Morgan in popularity. In skill and stuff,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. But
I'll
in
agree with you there. Yeah,
popularity, Alex Morgan is the modern, like Mia Hamm,
yeah,
like in the
true,
current
true.
day type
Hmm.
thing. So, but I want the coach to go, you're not in the 23, or you're not in my forward group. There's Sophia Smith, there's Rodman, there's all these people ahead of you. You're not going to the World Cup. I don't care if you're 38 and still can still do it and could be like a super sub, kind of like we saw Rapino. You're not, I don't think picking you over this person is better. Like, I'm not taking the best 23 or
Right.
whatever it is. I want that. I want this coach to not care about stars because we're at that stage. we we have 14 players filling out another national team. That's
Yeah.
how competitive our pool is. We are at that stage where you do not care about stars. You don't. You pick the best 23 who's going to win. I don't care. The best 23 is going to be the stars, in my opinion. There's not going to be someone out of left field of like, why them type thing. You picked truly the best 23. You do not go after name recognition. You go
Nope.
after who are the best players. And then you play those players in their roles. We did not, or Vlatko did not utilize Sophia Smith. He played her out of position. She is a number 9. She's a world class number 9, and she played out of position. That I think is much of the reason we had goal scoring troubles. Because you take players and you put them out of position. Same thing with Ertz. Granted,
Yep.
Ertz is world class, so she was fine. But the same thing with her. Play the players in their positions that are the best of your group.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at what shook out with this roster, I think that's exactly what happened. The best players were not in their positions to be as successful as they should have been, and that's what has come back to haunt them. Now, on the other hand, somebody who did kind of capitalize on the talent that they had on the roster, my last choice here, Tony Gustafson from Australia, guided the
Mm.
Matildas to the semifinals, was an assistant for the USWNT. He's been very successful, very familiar with our systems, and I think he could be a really appealing candidate.
I could see him. I genuinely could because especially how he handled Sam Kerr and
Yep.
GDX stuff. He was truly playing the best person available.
And that's why he would be my top pick.
I
That
like
alone.
him. I like him. I also like as a dark horse a Jamaican coach because any coach that can maximize talent is who I want
Yeah.
type thing. Now there is also the sense of with the US, there's more than just maximizing talent. You need to be able to control top talent.
Yep.
So whereas Jamaica or even Colombia, who has a rising star in their own right, when you have a team that people are going to overlook and think they're not that talented, it's much easier to maximize talent out of that because you can, with everyone, you can get the underdog thing. But if you're going into the U.S., even a U.S. team that people are like, what's going on with them? You still have top players. You have hopefully 7 contributors coming back too. Like
Yeah. I mean, it should
I
be.
genuinely think the injuries are what led to us going out in the round of 16. I think if we're fully healthy, we could have made the semifinals. Granted, this is the weirdest World Cup ever, in my opinion.
I mean,
Like
it's
it
been
genuinely
wildly entertaining.
Spain had not won a knockout stage at the Women's World Cup till this World Cup.
Yeah. And then they go on a run and win it all.
Yeah. England had made at least a semifinal and stuff like that. Australia, all that type of stuff. It's
and
just
them being the host.
yeah, it's just genuinely one of the weirder World Cups in women's. It was highly entertaining. I loved it, but it was weird. And that's all I've been hearing. This is weird. This is odd. So this could be the norm with a 32 team World Cup that the women's are. I don't expect the women to go up to 48 yet, but we could see what happens. This could just been the top countries are in a transitional period or have a boatload of stuff going on like Canada. So we'll see what happens when 2027 rolls around, wherever they're playing, because for some reason that hasn't been picked yet.
Yeah, why is I was kind of thinking, at the final and like the pregame or something, they would announce it. I don't know what the holdup is.
The Men's World Cup has always been announced six to 16 years in advance. We are now 4 years,
Yep,
not
and we
even
still don't
under
know.
4 years, under 4 years. And granted, every country I believe in it has hosted one. There's like U.S. and Mexico and some European ones and like South Africa are in it and Brazil. So it's not like these countries are like out of nowhere. But I don't like that they're just meh. If it's not announced by the end of this year, I bank on the U.S. doing it.
Yeah, that would kind of it would kind of lead me to think that it's some country that's already established that could host it really easily, right? So to me, I immediately think of some European countries, the USA, England or Germany, France, like something that would just be easy
It's
plug and
either
go, right?
the U.S., Europe, all of Europe basically has a major. Not every country can't host
Yeah,
a World
I mean
Cup, but like
Albania couldn't host the World Cup.
you could do like trios with some countries.
Yeah,
Brazil or Argentina. You could throw in Mexico in here too, or South Africa, because they're not going to go back to Australia. You could maybe
no,
even throw in Japan in there,
yeah.
but Japan hosted also very recently too.
Who's Isn't there an Olympics in Japan? Is that the next Olympics is
That
in
was the
Japan?
last
Or the
Olympics
last
were
one?
in Japan.
Okay,
The next one's in Paris.
that's it. Yeah, yeah. Next year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
2024. They're in Paris, and then in 2028, it's in LA.
they're in LA,
So
baby.
I I I honestly think FIFA's just going to give it to America, and it's going to be like this is genuinely the best period in time to be a U.S. fan. It's going to be like the '90s again.
Yep.
So if you're a fan living in America, capitalize on this. You're going to have the Copa America here next year. You're going to have the Club World Cup the year after that. Then you have the World Cup, and then ideally the Women's World Cup, and then the Olympics.
Yeah.
Capitalize on that. Don't try, because it's going to be impossible. Don't try to go to an American game. If you can, great. But
You think those Messi tickets are expensive?
prices are
Woo-wee.
going to be absurd.
Yeah,
Just go to a World Cup. Pick a secondary country, and
right.
say you've gone to a World Cup game.
Absolutely. That's my
Type
goal.
thing.
If
Say you've
Nashville
gone
can
to a
host
Copa
something,
America game.
I'm going. Or
That's
Louisville.
also I can rant about that the World Cup has like no Midwest cities at all.
We'll save that
But
one for another episode.
yeah,
Commenter there mentioning Brazil isn't suitable right now. Yes, there's a lot going on in Brazil right now.
Brazil has political and economic instability, but that's also 3 years around. I don't see them getting it, but in terms of countries that could just host a World Cup at the drop of the hat, I think Brazil is one of them. I'm not looking at political stability. I'm looking at existing infrastructure.
Speaking of infrastructure, if you enjoy this show and you'd like to support us, we have a buy me a coffee account. It is not required. We will always keep the Bluegrass Soccer Cast free and open to everybody. But if you enjoy our content and you want to help us build our infrastructure, see what I did there? See what I did there? You can make a donation, and we would greatly appreciate any and all the support. All the money, of course, goes to the show to make us the best show that we can. But John, with that out of the way now, let's go to the bottom line. And John, we've kind of really talked about a lot of our teams that have been in action over the past weekend. Just kind of briefly going over everything for everyone at home. Starting in Lou City, they lost 2-0 to Birmingham. Very flat performance. Saw their 4-game unbeaten streak disappear. As John mentioned earlier, early goals were the doom of Lou City. Coach Cruz said he was very disappointed, citing poor set play performance, especially on the defensive end, as a major lack of concern for his team. Lou City lacked a lot of energy. They lacked just the excitement to go. I mean, it didn't help that stadium was like 90% empty, so I kind of
It was
understand it.
also insanely hot. It's
Yeah,
going to
yes, it
be
was.
insane. It's going to be insanely hot this week, like
Yep.
across America. Like it was so hot today. I work at a YMCA. We postponed all soccer and flag football practice because of how hot it was, and Lexington's academy postponed practice. They went just stay inside. It was that hot today.
Yes. For those who can, please make sure you're drinking plenty of water. If you have to go outside, do what you have to as quickly as possible and get back in, but be safe out there. But John, overall, the timing of this flat performance was really bad and very disappointing, considering that the team was doing a little bit better. So very disappointed to see Lou City lose out in that factor. Any final thoughts on Lou City's performance over the weekend?
Personally, no, they did. They played a little better in the second half, but it's just heat.
Yep.
I'm a full believer in heat is a factor at times. Heat,
Oh yeah.
empty stadium, and it was just, especially if you're
Being
going
down
down,
early.
if you get
Yep.
down early in the heat, it's just going to cost you because the other team can park the bus. They don't have to work as hard in the heat, and you're having to bust your butt. It's just going to not work out in your favor.
Speaking of parking the bus, we'll jump over to Lexington, reviewing their matchup with One Knox. Final score: Lexington 0, One Knox 1. The victory for One Knox did give them the barrel bowl brawl thing. Um,
The
so
barrel brawl.
there it is. I don't know
They
why I want
got
to
the
call it
they
bowl.
got the
I'm real
bourbon
close to bowl.
barrel. Don't know what this trophy looks like because they didn't lift
We need a
anything.
real trophy if we don't have one already. But as we mentioned, One Knox was down a man for the last 50 or so minutes. Their lone goal came right after halftime. Lexington controlled possession, but just really struggled to get those high quality chances to score. Um, just overall, a frustrating match for Lexington. John, final thoughts on Lexington's performance from the weekend?
It was painful. I was very sad over it. It was a tough loss, but at the same time, I've explained this earlier. It's not like a shattering loss. It's not one that like freaks you out. I don't like the Fuego loss was a lot more crazy and like a lot more shocking and hurt more. This one, I feel this was more unlucky than bad.
And for some of our Lexington fans, this comment here describes exactly how they were feeling. Just pain, pure pain. So let's jump back to Louisville, John, and we'll talk. We'll close out today's show by talking about Racing Louisville, who had a kind of a mixed performance, if I'm being honest. I was excited for the result, but final score: Racing Louisville 1, Angel City 1. So it was nice that Racing Louisville was able to get the draw against Angel City in front of a record crowd, 10,214 fans. Davis scored the equalizer in the 79th minute. So it was nice to have the comeback draw. It keeps racing in the playoff conversation, heading down the stretch with only 6 matches remaining. They have time still to secure a spot in the playoffs.
Yes, they do.
What did you see from this one, John?
Overall, this was a very tough and tight match overall. Um, it's great to see the crowd there. You're seeing both sides incorporate their World Cup players back into it, so I think that was a mix of it.
Yep,
Is just
I agree.
how heavy racing's attack is World Cup based. Um, but overall, they got the draw, they got the equalizer, they didn't lose, they didn't complete the reverse Kentucky Triple Crown. Um, it, but they could have looked better. But the NWSL, it's hard. They haven't played in so long. You're bringing people back. It's like basically a new season.
Yep.
So
And I think starting out with the draw, a good solid start.
I think it was a good solid start. The fact that they were able to play, they've looked much better in the second half, even after they conceded, in my opinion. So
It
if they
did.
can play
Way more
more up
aggressive.
to that and just come back fully refreshed, they should have Chidiac back next. She might not play the next game, but she'll be back. I think at least.
Might play late.
Yeah. They just need to get back in the swing of things, back into order. Everyone's back. You can all this type of stuff, but keep showing out, keep packing the fan. That, in my opinion, personally, this is me. Both racing and Blue City shouldn't have to do like 18 things to get you to come to a game.
Agreed. It's one of those things where it's a beautiful facility. Tickets are not that expensive when you compare them to other professional clubs. I mean, if you're comparing it to your local high school that everybody gets in for free or gets in for $5, well, yeah, of course it's going to sound expensive to pay 15 to 20 to go to a match like that. But I want to
Eight,
continue to see more people at these games.
$15 to $18 is not bad for a game in any
Right.
sort sense. It
It's
doesn't
on
matter
par with
where
a
the
movie
league
ticket.
is. Yeah, it doesn't matter what league it is because you got to remember these teams still need to make some money, but
Right.
they're not gouging you for bad tickets. You can get a really good ticket for $18.
Yeah.
That's good.
When when I was working with BGFC, that was one of the things that I was always like hounding them on. It was like, you can't raise your prices more than what it is for other entertainment. And in our community, the easiest thing to target was one, the minor league baseball team, the Bowling Green Hot Rods, and the other one was movie ticket prices. Hot Rods tickets at that time were $10 a piece. You could sit anywhere in the stadium for $10. You had to pick your own seat for $10. If you went to a movie, you could pick your own seat for, I don't know, $12.50 or maybe $13 at that time. Both those are more expensive now, but when you're comparing your entertainment options, right? You can go to this one game for $20 a ticket, or you can go see a movie for 15. If money is tight, you're going to pick the cheaper option. So if you want to continue to see the sport expand, we've got to make sure that we're not gouging our prices, we're keeping things reasonable. And that's what exactly racing and Lou City have done this year.
Yes, they have. Like, if anything, Lucity has the pedigree to want to do higher ticket prices, but they don't
Right.
because they
And
don't need to.
yeah, you don't have to always have season tickets. You don't always have to have these specialty things to raise your profit margins and stuff like that. If you can easily pack your stadium with, I mean, that stadium could easily hold 8,000 comfortably every game, right? Like, and it
I
would
think
look nice and filled.
average for the men's team I think they average around 9,000 a game.
Yeah.
Last I saw.
And so, when that's your average and your baseline, we need to go on and support both teams at that same level. And yes,
And
racing is a little bit newer,
racing
but
is
still,
averaging
it can't be very many. I bet it's under
6,000
what?
through 8 games. This is just NWSL matches.
Hmm.
I believe racing is averaging just over 6,000. Um, it's a little below what they averaged last year, but they're averaging around. I mean, the top are San Diego, Angel City, and Portland. They're all averaging over 15,000. San Diego's averaging almost 20,000.
Now, where do they play? Where do the Wave play at?
Snapdragon,
Oh, they do. Okay, I didn't know if they played there. If they played at the other one, the San Diego, uh, not San Diego State. There's another college there. I can't remember which one. But yeah, like go out,
UC San
support
Diego.
both teams. That's it. Yes. I thought that's where they played, but it's important for us in Louisville and in Kentucky in general to continue to support these teams. Prices are reasonable. Let's make it happen. But John, with that, we will head out for this episode. We have another great episode coming up for you on Wednesday. Just want to drop the teaser now as we're closing things out today. John and I will break down all of our Division One college teams this coming up season, both men's and women's. So if you're interested in continuing to see that coverage, make sure you check out our website as well as come back to our Wednesday show so that we can have a full-on discussion of how good Bellarmine men's team is going to be, or how good Murray State women's is going to do, and so forth and so on. But like always, what are we going to say, John?
And with that, our lower Division 2 sides and below, we produced an article. We're going to try to do weekly articles weekly articles, like little cliplet articles about D1. That's just because they have more information for us than others. Their games are easier to watch. Just overall, there are only 3 of us who do this for free. We all have other full-time jobs. But the other D2 and down, we are going to be doing a box score-ish report, so everyone can keep track. That'll be like record. We'll note like goal scorers and that type of stuff. It's not going to be as detailed. We'll note if anything, like if someone gets like their 50th win, or they're the all-time leading scorer of the school now.
Championships, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
we'll note that, but there are no joke people from NCAA D1 down to NCCAA D2. There are 54 soccer programs in this state.
Yep.
And as with schools like Murray, Western Kentucky, EKU, Moorhead, who only have one team.
Yep.
So
these
could
lower
very
leagues,
much be more.
The lower leagues just absolutely dominate this conversation. I mean, D3,
half of them are like NAIA or D3.
Yeah, D3 has 10 teams. NAIA, you're exactly right. They have, 20 programs between men's and women's.
So we would love to cover them. And maybe you're a listener at a school and you want to be
a beat writer.
We will let you, if you're a journalism major listening to this, we can't pay you, but we can give you experience that you can take anywhere from a very professional looking website that you can share with people, being like, I did this.
Yep.
And we
give full credit for all
for
that
you type thing. But we, as much as we would love to cover all 54 teams in depth like we do the pro teams, It's just
No
not
shot.
physically possible with us all doing a profession or all doing 40 hours a week at other jobs.
I don't
Also,
know
with
if
me in
covering
grad
all of
school,
them plus 40 hours free a week would be possible. That's a lot.
I if I wasn't in grad about to start my another semester of grad school, and it genuinely was my like I was getting paid to do this, I think I could. It wouldn't be great in-depth articles. They wouldn't be great in-depth articles all the time, but I think I could do it. I think I could pull it off, but that would be
Yeah.
like trying to keep up.
Yes. So if you want to get, if you're a journalism student, you know a journalism student, you know an athletics program that could hook us up with a journalism student, our website is here. There's a contact link. Feel free to click on it, as well as feel free to message us on like Twitter or Instagram or something like that, and we'd be more than happy to set up a conversation with you. But John, with that, as always, I want to thank everybody for watching. Every viewer is valuable here. We appreciate all of the feedback from everyone and all the support. Make sure you're following us on all our social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at BG Soccercast. And make sure you give us a listen on all your favorite podcasting platforms, anything from Spotify, Google, YouTube, Apple, iHeartRadio, and so many more. When you're on those platforms, make sure to like, rate, comment, share, do all of those things as well. And as always, thank you all so very much for joining us. I'm Jimmy, that's John, and we will see you on the next one.